Good morning, Striver. How are you doing today? We're back in the ITAM Kitchen, the place where we have lots of discussions about different topics in asset management, software asset management, even configuration management within kind of like we're around the kitchen table, kitchen island. We're at a party, we're having a discussion about ITAM chat. Don't we all do that? We used to have water cooler chats like this back in the day, but well, there you go. Hey, my name's Bill, Mr. Bill. I'm a recovering IT practitioner here, one of the hosts here in the ITAM Kitchen, and being able to say, okay, let's talk, have the collaboration. And how did we start? We started because we're actually senior individuals in our field, and we said, you know what? Let's have a discussion. And what I found is talking to people, etc. For example, Rob and I get together. We can talk for hours. We found out, right? And we said, you know what? Let's do it online. We've done this with Sasha, done Jeremy, done Rennie. We've talked about Chad. I mean, there's all sorts of, and there's Patrick. It's all sorts of individuals. And Deanna, can't forget Deanna as well. So some of the guests we've had, or even Don Champlin. And having discussions like, guys, why don't we just go live and talk about this? And they go, wow, I mean, there's nothing else like this. And I've heard through the grapevine. By the way, put something in the chat. Say where you're from, what your topics are, what keeps you up at night. And just what keeps, at least say hi, put it that way, put it in the chat, is the whole idea here is help stop making a hidden discipline. Let's make it more unknown. Let's talk about there are some things we can't talk about because it's privilege. Privilege because it's specific to a customer, right? You have that. But the general type knowledge, everyone keeps it tight to the chest. I've seen this for way too long. And trust me, I've been recognized as a fellow, et cetera, for certain organizations. And I've seen it happen even in those organizations. They keep it tight to the chest. It's like, really?
Yeah.
What are we doing, right? We're not helping each other. We're not, right? Because what happens when you start hoarding things? Nobody wants to be around you. So we're not doing that. We're actually trying to make this a more open, insightful. How do you go to that next step? So, again, here, I've actually founded the IT Management Co-op in the last 6 years. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 6 years now. And that's where we have a community. We actually talk about these things. You say, well, we're inside the community. It's, yeah, but I can't do Facebook. LinkedIn is just disastrous days. Yeah, you might be live here, et cetera. That's great. I'm grateful if you are. But if you're not, I totally get it. It's an interesting world this year with some of the changes Microsoft made to the LinkedIn platform. But where I'm going with that is, doesn't matter. We're still doing this. If you want to see us on ITAM Kitchen, we're definitely subscribing to ITAM Kitchen as well. Let me just go ahead and make a quick break. But before we get started on today's topic, and we're continuing on the accidental CMDB in two environments. We'll talk about the setup on that in a second. Rob, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, just briefly, I'm Rob Collins. I'm an ITAM practitioner, 30 plus years of experience in the field from when I was in the United States Marines, all the way up through 2 state agencies over the course of 26 years, and then as a private consulting practice as well. And yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things I guess to say is that around ITAM is that when ITAM works and it's successful, you hardly ever hear about it. It's silent. It's in the background. And so this is one way that we can get this word out to the community and activate and charge everybody up to have these discussions. Everybody has questions. Here's a great place to ask those questions and to get some answers. Back to you, Ben.
Exactly. And it's also important when you think about, and you made a valid point there, right? When asset management's working extremely well, or software asset management, even configuration management, it's quiet, right? Well, that's actually what hinders us. That right there. It should not be quiet. We should be very interactive and engaging with our peers at that point. Don't be quiet on the background. Say, you know what? I need to do a status update, exciteful. So not to negate what you just said there, Rob, but it's being able to say, you know what? We need to be more forward in what we do and how we communicate and etc. That's all. Because, yeah, some of us, I'm very much an extrovert. Many of us are introverts. I get it. We like to kind of do your thing, but sometimes that collaboration is what helps us drive that next step. And that's what I'm talking about, is when you think about how you're able to further drive and be that striver and put that next step, people want to ask for you to be in the room when you're not there. That's what I'm talking about. How can you be that person that's does show, not doesn't just show up, but you're contributing and they want to ask you back. There we go. Let's talk about that. So,
Yeah.
our scenarios for today.
Today.
It's been a lot of fun. Is we have the accidental CMDB. We have two different scenarios. We've been doing it in parallel the entire month. We're almost done. I mean, gosh, I cannot believe it. May is almost here. We've been doing great, and Rob and I and Deanna's been on every once in a while. We have blasted these discussions. You never know. Me and Deanna may drop in real quick on us, and that's awesome too.
I hope so.
Yeah, she's done it before. That's awesome. Do it. But here's what we have. Oh, by the way, before I forget, make sure you tune in next Friday as well. See all of them, absolutely. We have a special announcement coming up next Friday that I want everyone to be aware of. So I'm going to set that up, just kind of tee it up.
Good.
See, the dogs are barking. They're excited for us to have it. It's awesome. That's what it's all. I love it. Who let the dogs out? I want more dogs. I will bring dogs. Actually, there are dogs that are going to come to this event too. So we'll just put it that way. Everyone can bring their dogs to this event. I'm totally cool with it.
We're dog friendly.
It's very dog friendly. Come on. It's just got people dog friendly. It's what it's all about. But where I'm going with that is we have a big announcement happening next Friday. You'll see some teasers in the next couple of days. Absolutely. But there's a big announcement coming that we're going to do. And yeah, you're going to want to be part of this. It's very exciting. But back to the scenario. We have two different scenarios happening in parallel here. Both environments are going to fresh work / fresh service. So fresh service is the product, fresh works is the company, just for clarity. One is a bank. We got a small and mid-sized bank. And they're actually going from Sharewell, which is being end of life this year, and going to Freshworks. And what happened is the asset manager, software asset manager said, okay, we'll make it happen. But they said, oh, by the way, you're going to gain the CMDB as well. It's like, okay. So in charge of that's a new role, right? And by the way, he's getting very little input. The operations managers decide they're going to run it. I found this out recently too. And by the way, it's very little input. So first thing is get engaged. I'll just put it that way. So a little bit of coaching happening. That's one scenario. The other scenario is you have an environment going from ServiceNow to Freshworks / Fresh Service. And they did theirs because of cost justification reasons. That was what we know. ServiceNow, it's the gorilla out there, absolutely. And by the way, there are no endorsements by any organizations doing this. But it's being able to say, yeah, we can't afford it anymore. We have to go with something better. What's good enough? And management made a decision. They're going down this path. It's like, okay. So you have another, but it's also another example environment where the person doing asset management and software asset management, they said, by the way, you're going to also implement the CMDB and put relationships in there and put the organizational structure and put the CIs and the relationships, application, service mapping, et cetera, in there. It's like, do it. So we've been talking about this in many different aspects through the entire month. You know, when we're finished, we're going to have 13 episodes. So if you think we haven't gotten done, that's 13 hours of content on just this topic. 13. Right? Exactly. It's absolutely lucky 13. We love it. It's not Friday the 13th. It's lucky 13. Come on. We got to make it happen. We all need good card games. Anyways, two different environments, very near and dear to a lot of folks' heart. And we said, you know what? Let's go live. Let's talk about this. And what Rob and I have been doing the entire month. And what's today's episode? The executive review. Right. There we go. We set it up. The executive review. So where's our baselines looking like? Let the management finally see what the results are our effort, right? Yeah. Now, what comes to mind for me, and the first question that comes to mind, and Rob and I were talking about this a little bit prior to getting started tonight, is the timing when you want to do something like this. Rob, there's some things that come to mind, but what comes to mind for you with, I'll say, the first / second executive type review like this?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is what you're doing within the initial planning, because given good considerations, right, for what you're going to encounter and to do full discovery, for instance, within the environment, you have to understand that things will pop up, et cetera. So, but if you have a plan put in ahead, right, and you apply any opportunities for automation, right, then at least you've got more or less a time frame that you can expect that you'll have a reasonable assurance of the completeness of, let's say, your data set, right? In this case, the CMDB, as the products are being put in place and you're going to launch those discovery services. The other thing too is being sure within the constraints of the project that you're fully aligned and communicating with especially those stakeholders that will be helpful in not only the discovery process, but also in validating what you have, so that you know that you have good confidence when you get to that mark. And we discussed a bit before, and I see some viewpoints, let's say, from we should be able to have a reasonable picture within, let's say, 3 months, but realistically, maybe it can take a little bit longer. Like 6 months might be a more realistic viewpoint, given interruptions, etc. So that's kind of what comes to mind, just to get us started.
Well, it also depends upon the environment, right? The environment, the complexity, et cetera, and where you're doing it. From this, like you were saying, it's also about the awareness.
Oh, yeah.
So you should always have, because if you do via sprint, you're doing like 2-week sprints anyways, typically. I mean, most of the projects are typically sprint driven when you look at projects. Yeah. If you're doing updates, tell leadership when you're getting near the testing, or you actually start in the middle of the test or near the end, say, you know what, it's time for you to come along and see what's happening. Just have some visibility so you're aware, right? Yeah. I learned from a good friend of mine. His name is also Bill T, ironically enough, a good friend of mine who's a CFO. And he told us last year in the ITAM Summit, he says, no, the one thing is when I give you a budget, I need to understand how it's being used as it's being used. I don't want to know after the fact. I don't want to know. I want to know prior to having issues coming. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's one thing to be reactive. It happens. But it says, I gave you money. I'm trusting that you're going to spend it wisely. Yeah. I need you to update me, and I'm expecting you to come to me, not me to go to you. You come to me and give me an update on that side, because honestly, you know what your project is. You know when you need my attention. I'm diverting like 14 million different things, and it's something I'm delegating to you. Yeah, and that was extremely powerful in that discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Is whether it's 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 years. It's not 3 years typically, but say 6 months, but you need to keep your executives at least updated on what's happening. Yeah. Just have an awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Because no one likes to be blindsided, especially the executives. Because if all of a sudden, I'll give an example, they're in a negotiation. They're negotiating for, say, insurance, or it could be health insurance. It could be insurance from the company, et cetera. And all of a sudden they get this email saying, the project just went off the rails. We need you to pull you out of this meeting to go make this happen, because you need to go talk to the contractor vendor because we're out of hours. Yeah. Well, it's not a good position to be in. Right? No. I don't think it doesn't happen. It does, right? But I'm using that as an example because when you think about things like that, that's what we're trying to avoid, the awareness. And the executives are going to appreciate it as well. Even if it's bad news, they need to have some heads up. So to your point, Rob, absolutely. 3 months, I say near end into timeline is going to vary. The environment's going to vary too. And from that, for me, it's also being aware of where you are at that point in time. It's not about having everything done. Mm-hmm. Everyone says, oh, we're not going to bring them in until the very end and we're ready to go, et cetera. We're going to look for perfection. Yeah. Well, so Rob, you know what the thing is about perfection, right? And everyone looks for perfection.
Well, yeah. Everybody looks for perfection, but if you're going to wait for that, you're never going to get a thing done.
Exactly. Perfection is the biggest weakness you can have. Yeah. It's about taking action, right? You got it, make it happen, take action, even if it's not perfect, because we have two different scenarios here. They know it's not going to be perfect for several reasons. Yeah. And that's okay. Just realize that's okay. The communication is what helps.
Absolutely. Right? And it's critical, really. I mean, and we can maybe kind of start there, right? Sure. Whenever you have a major project, for instance, it's best practice to have some kind of a touch point, if you will, or a synchronization between parties that occurs, either on a weekly basis or sometimes shorter, in extreme situations, and sometimes longer, a 2 week or 1 month, depending upon the level of detail that's required by the stakeholder, let's say, and the involvement, right? In this particular example that Bill just gave, for instance, the CFO is given a budget to somebody to run a project, and they really need to have some assurances along the way that it's trending properly. Like, for instance, to give an example, if you did this and you had a total bucket of money, a burn down chart is a really good way to show what you're starting with and how you're moving through this, right? Now, if you take this, for instance, and look at the trend for that spending, right, and for the use of the budget, you also can make progress reports on the value that the entity or that the company's getting for what's been invested so far, and then what sort of preparatory activity is occurring utilizing the budget to peruse further reports on progress, or to take further measures, or whatever it might be, a system expansion, further discoveries, other security layers that need to be put in place. So you get that idea, and then you do that. You have that touch point. Let's just assume it's a 2-week touch point. Then you give them the confidence that things are being managed properly and that they're getting the return on the investment.
Mm-hmm. Because, think about so let's make it relatable to what we do. Let's make it relatable to our audience here. Think about, you're going to go buy that car, right? You give the effort, or so you're going to get something fixed on the car, right? Mm-hmm. So you go to the mechanic, say, okay, I'm going to approve you to spend this much. But they spend 10 times that much.
Yeah.
And they give you the bill. You can be a little upset? Yes. It's different, right? Yeah. It's no different. And I'm using a vehicle. It could be house repairs, whatever. Just name it, right? When we don't like surprises. Well, neither do the executives. They're human just like us. Oh, well, it's $1 billion company. It won't matter to them. Yes, it does.
Yeah, don't assume that. That's terrifically unprofessional to do.
Because here's what happens, right? And I've seen, because here's my stories. I've seen organizations do this. Whether, obviously, very large organizations, I won't call them out, but very large organizations. And they come at the end and they're afraid of talking to the customer. And you find out they get the invoice, exceeds what the project was going to be, because they doubled, if not tripled, the amount of hours and level of effort. And the project manager never communicated that we had a gap here, ever, because we're dealing with escalation the entire time. Mm-hmm. What happens? Stalemate. Project gets shut down, or project gets stalled, because now you have a different issue that came up, which is not even project related, outside budgets, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we're going to sue, we're going to legal action, and the attorneys get involved, and you start doing that. Okay, where's the outcome here, right? Mm-hmm. What are we looking for? Yeah. We get caught in this little tangent instead of saying, all we're trying to do is get the job done and awareness. That's it.
Or worse.
Yeah.
You end up with an ever extended spend on the project, which not only goes over in terms of the budget, but also goes over in terms of time, for instance, and overall value to the people that have invested in it. The best examples that I can think of, especially all you great Central Florida residents, how long has that construction going in and around Tampa been going on? I think it's the I-4. Well, that's one example, right? And then there are other very serious major projects, like major data systems that are being replaced, right? And projects that have gone way over on spend and way over on time and have been extended. And now they're running 14 years. There must be a term for this in the industry someplace, Bill, about a project that never ends, a project that just keeps going, keeps consuming. Somebody find that term and put it in the comments. I really want to know.
Well, it's about this is also where that collaboration. We've been talking about collaboration the entire time, right? Mm-hmm. And you've have to be honest with it. Is okay on the executive review, because our real goal at this point, when the executive first sees that, is not to give them the invoice. We're not saying, okay, we've got to overspend. We're trying to say, here's what we're looking at. Here's the baseline we have from the progress we made to date. And also identify, okay, what works, what doesn't, because we may not have everything done. right? So, for example, initially they may be doing desktops in one environment, and say the bank's doing desktops and the servers are being done within the insurance company. Two different focuses. Just show how you're progressing, show some of the gaps, show some of the progress, show what you're actually working on, some of the issues. That's how you walk into this. So I'm switching it from the overage, right, to actually showing the system, right? And make sure that you also provide that insight. Say, here's where we are today, because your executives going to have questions here too. They may not know all the details, right? Your CIO, CFO, maybe both. And being able to say, we'll figure this out.
Yeah. Scope creep is one term that I found.
Yeah.
I know that
Again,
there are better terms.
no, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, because when you start working with things like this, it's being able to also say, okay, here's where we are. I know one time I was doing a status update, similar, but it was more stakeholder review more than executives. But the executives were in there too. And I found out how many stakeholders I actually had for a CMDB bringing it live. It was like the second or third one. All of a sudden, everyone came on this call. I have over 70 stakeholders on the call. I had no idea I had that many stakeholders, but they were right when I started going down the list. Like, oh my gosh, we had IT for the main organization. I was actually a contractor on top of it. That doesn't include the two outsourcers. I had two outsourcers, one for applications, one for servers, and I was just doing servers in this case. And we had multiple break fix individuals on there for the different, whether it's the servers, networks, operating system, etc. We had the applications, all the different support networks there. I had storage teams on there. It just morphed.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out the real value behind this whole effort. They had that visibility and they go, wow, this is cool. We can start using it and provide them confidence as well, because they saw the progression being made.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start doing that, you realize, well, all the effort's starting to pay off. And we're not done, right? This is a program. This is not a project, right? We're projects to get the product on board, but this is a program. It's like, that's the time to emphasize as well. This is the beginning, but it can't continue like this unless everyone else contributes towards keeping the data complete, accurate, look at the dashboard, see what's there. Things we've talked about for the last couple of weeks within this whole project or within this whole effort, right?
Uh-huh.
This is involved, right?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I think it's important to kind of, when you're at this, let's say your initial briefing, let's assume it's 6 months until you have a level of confidence with the effort so far that you're ready to sit down with the executive and say, okay, let's show you what we've got accomplished in the last 6 months, right? I think one of those things that would be really valuable, especially with respect to, let's say, CMDB, right, is to show them against the inventories that you have, that you can cite, right, and against the purchasing and the acquisition data that you have for what should be in the environment, right? And the CFO should have resources that you can see on the books. This is what we're expecting to see. At that point, what you can do is you can really get a good idea of the gap between what you've done and you've gotten through discovery, right, and the total value of all those assets, and then get down to, you wouldn't necessarily get down to the nitty gritty and do technical level reviews and validation, not for the executive, but that process should be feeding into this briefing for the executives to let them know that, look, we did manage to get about maybe 80% so far. Then you can explain what is the gap, right? What are you assuming around the gap? Like, is it stuff that's in storage, stuff that's in a closed off environment, an air gapped environment, and then you could look at that and you could say, all right, so now how important is it to close the remaining 20%? Let's not even go there. How much would you want to, let's say, close the next 15%, right?
Sure.
knowing that there's going to be a margin of error and there are going to be items that maybe you won't find, right? And then this is a great time then to sit down with them and say, okay, so boss, hey, for the next level of this effort, beyond the rest of implementation, I really want us to kind of close that gap in inventory and in what we're accounting for against what we have in operation, which is what the CMDB is for, right? And then you can have those discussions and get that approval, maybe even another slice of budget to sheet to it. Because the more you see, the more you can manage. And the whole idea for getting those business outcomes is ensuring that you are managing everything that's in use, because you want to make sure you're getting as much value as possible out of your investment in the infrastructure, in endpoint devices, in the software and the services, in what you're doing in the cloud, in all of your subscription licensing, for instance. So really, this is so important to get right and to get complete as possible or acceptable, that this really does drive and determine everything else that you're going to be using the systems for.
Well, it's also the opportunity, because keep in mind, we had a business case we started from. I always, every time I start a project, and we talked about that over the last couple of weeks, you have that project charter, kind of your marching orders, right? You have that looking at a little bit further. And with that, saying, okay, what have we accomplished so far? Where are we as far as making the objectives for that charter? Where are we in the objectives for where are we achieving the objectives that we had and goals we set for just this whole effort, right? Are we there? Are we not? The executive also needs to know that. The stakeholders need to be aware of this, right? Because when you start doing this, you're comparing and you're back to your base. That's your baseline. You said, here's where we're going to. Right. Okay, going there. Show me how close we are or why we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Or where it's going to be. It's that opportunity to talk. And don't be, yes, everyone gets intimidated because of titles. The title entitlement, right? Everyone gets in fair, but keep in mind, these are also humans as well. They're usually very understanding. Some executives don't get it. They're going to be demanding and they're royal pains, and I'll just let you fill in your own additional adjectives in there. Yes, they have their moments, or now you can make them nouns too. It just depends what your word is. But you can make adjectives and nouns all together, very descriptive. And they've all been said, I'm sure, in multiple different environments. But when you start providing this insight and comparing to where you are, that's what people want to understand. Okay, how are we progressing? May not be done. Great. Show me where you are, and I want to understand why we are where we are. Not saying that you did anything wrong, but maybe some obstacles you had, maybe some additional challenges, environments. I know in the insurance company, I'm familiar with insurance companies. Because of in the U.S., we have HIPAA regulations and how it's being done and how we look at the Medicare group, et cetera, like that. Totally isolated networks. Getting data out of there is not easy, right? Because it's extremely restrictive to try to get that back in the rest of the environment. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's limited. And because of that, you have to go through some additional hoops and approvals to make that happen, including even probably regulatory, making sure, okay, the powers to be are allowing the data to come out.
Yeah.
That may take 3 months. It may take 2 weeks. I don't know. Every environment's a little different, but I know I've personally seen that just from a discovery standpoint. So when you start thinking about things like that, it's like, yeah, we're here, but that's not going to happen for another couple of months because of the way X, Y, and Z. And the executive says, really? Why is that? And you explain. I said, tell you what, hold on a second. Let me call somebody. George, need to talk. At the top of the hour, can we have a conversation? Cool. We'll have it taken care of today. That's the type of action we're talking about, right? That's the type of support. Again, don't always expect that. It does happen because the executive doesn't want to have this hanging over them either. If it's a conversation he needs to have with a peer, okay, let's have a conversation. Maybe they're going to have lunch together anyway. It's like, when we have lunch, I want to make sure we have this additional topic on it. Let's add that to it. We'll catch up on the personal stuff. I just need to talk this and get off my plate, and we're good. Okay, fine. It's that simple. Communication.
I wanted to address something that you touched on there, right? Especially for folks that are for folks that are doing this kind of work, right, and let's say maybe they're excellent from a technical perspective or from a project management perspective, but aren't necessarily really good around talking to executives, just use this, right? What you have to say is greater than your reluctance to say it.
Oh
Take
yeah,
that
good
and
point.
keep that in mind, right? Whenever you're dealing with these situations, and it's relatable to other situations as well. Okay, so this way you can move beyond that hurdle and let yourself deliver the messages that need to be delivered, because the decision making is going to rely on that information that you have to give them.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's critically important, and I definitely wanted to put that out there.
No, that's a great point. And you, well, I'll put it this way: as asset managers, we go for certification. We learn the exam. We talk about it. We talk about closed doors. But that's much different than actually executing and moving forward with those activities.
That's right.
It's not easy. So if you feel that you're hindered, constrained, not sure how to do it, hey, you need to be a part of a community. I'll just put a quick plug on the co-op. I like the co-op because we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. That's actually where some of these topics came from that we're talking about right now. We talk about this stuff all the time in all different scenarios, right? And it's not a public forum, it's actually a private forum. And you're amongst peers that understand what you're doing. It's not about, okay, not doing things on LinkedIn. I don't recommend it. We all have our moments, right? Because some of these things can't be talked about in public. Or maybe you need to have a separate coaching discussion. I have coaching calls like that with my peers all the time. All the time. So, that's a lot. That's a lot.
It is.
But it is. But, that's actually a great point, too. And we forget about this. We're so busy, going. The other part I want to talk about when we start talking about how we're stabilizing the baseline and we're showing it is this is also the time to celebrate. Like, okay, where'd you go? Just tell left turn. See. Okay. So Rob just got disconnected. He'll be right back. But my point is, this is also the time to celebrate. Celebrate your progress. Celebrate where you are. It's that opportunity to say, we've made progress. We're not done. We're not bringing out the cake yet. And if you've been part of a ServiceNow project, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I totally lost my audio.
Okay. So the idea is you're going to celebrate and have fun. It's like appreciate people and their contributions. It's time to recognize, oh, thank you, make it happen, right? Because that's also where you also are able to further identify how you can progress, right? How the team can progress in the effort. It's that opportunity. How can you work with this and be able to further drive that?
Asking for audio.
You're live. Okay. But being able to say, how are we working through this? Because sometimes just that little pat on the back goes a really, really, really long ways. Goes a really long ways. So how do you drive that? Rob, you are still, I can hear you, Rob. You just can't hear me. Because when you think about that little celebration, that little recognition, a little bit of appreciation, people are going to remember that because everyone's working hard. Everyone's working really hard.
Let's do this.
There we go. Everyone's working really hard, right? And when you give a little bit of appreciation, that goes a long ways because there's not enough appreciation that people receive in the projects, right? And when you talk about how you, in this case, this is grueling. Whether you're talking about the bank and being able to say, okay, how am I putting this place? I'm limited on what I can talk to and who I can be with, et cetera, but I still need to make it work. Or whether you talk about the insurance company and you're used to more functionality, you have less functionality, you have to make it work and make do with what you have in those roles, and you have the day job happening on top of this with both of these roles. and you give a little appreciation in addition, people are going to remember that.
Lost.
Really remember that.
Come on, man.
They're gonna remember it from. There we go. They're gonna remember who you are and how you've contributed, as well as how you recognize them at that moment, right? And being able to say, how do you further refine this? How can you that next step? They're gonna stay with you. They're gonna say,
There we go.
let's make it happen. Because sometimes the ears just get turned off and no one pays attention if you don't recognize them and appreciate what they do, right?
Mhm.
Hey, we have to have fun
And
with this.
how?
Oh, absolutely. So, Rob, what I was talking about is this is also the time to help recognize and appreciate people and recognize them at
Oh,
that
for sure.
for what their contributions are. Right. That's exactly that's where I just went with that. I don't know if you have any stories on that. I know I like to do it, and I probably have 2 or 3 stories I can share on that alone with projects because I know it goes a long ways.
Yeah, on a number of different efforts, and that's sometimes, for instance, where I'll do that. You can mention the contributing members of the team, right, at the beginning, at the outset of the call or whatever, or the sit down. Another thing that you can do is I would pick that where you do the reveal. Like we're at 80%, for instance, of everything that we expected. And by the way, we were able to do this thanks to, and then highlight the team members, for instance. And I've had those moments in the past too when we've been negotiating something where there was trouble, right? And we found the solution, and the other side was insisting that it wasn't possible to solve. I literally had the developer sitting at the table with me immediately to my right. And I was able to say, well, we have fixed it, and it didn't take weeks, months. It took 3 hours. And right next to me is the man that solved the problem. By the way, if you want the solution to the problem, we'll just give it to you. And there he was. And one of the best developers that I think that I've ever encountered in my entire career. Guy's phenomenal.
Well, the one thing I also find out is when you recognize people like that, Rob, is especially with management in the room, what I find is it also leadership will pay attention to that.
Yep, I do.
A lot, because that's not something you're trained on. You're just not. We talk about it, it's discussions, but this actually takes active action, right? And they'll recognize it all to the point it's like, okay, if you do something special, say you're going to do some champagne, if you bring champagne in, or you want to do little drinks, okay, maybe you want to bring grape juice. I don't know, whatever you get away with, right? But make a little appreciation. They're going to remember that, and they're going to say, you know what, guys, here's what's going to be on me. It's get my credit card for this one. I'm going to pay for it. We'll figure out where to go. And when we're finished, we're going to go out and celebrate with everybody and do a lunch or bring in pizzas or something like that, right? Or maybe he's going to say, you know what, guys, with this vendor, I really see where you're going. And maybe the vendor's in the room too when you do this. I do recommend that as well, right? And say, Charles, a good old buddy of you. It's like, tell you what, the next time we get together, can you pay for lunch for everybody? He says, sure, done. End of story. It's not about, it's putting them on the spot, but it's not, right? Because from that standpoint, it's appreciation, right? And the vendor's going to remember. You're going to remember the vendor doing it for you.
Absolutely.
That's how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
On that part. So I don't know if you've gone through that. I know I've done that for several times, and I know when I was at HP, I was notorious, and I was a managing consultant on top of doing multiple different roles. But specifically when I was working projects, those type of activities, I made sure I brought in things. And maybe for just the updates, I brought chocolates. It was that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
There was
bring in chocolate.
another something that I had definitely kind of wanted to put out there, especially around that, and that is guidance when it comes to that with people recognition and whatnot. And that is, I heard it a lot in the Marines, and I didn't know where it originally came from. So I found out. Vince Lombardi, right, NFL coach, right, praise in public and criticize in private, right? Praising in public uplifts the team member and whatnot to the team and gets them good exposure and builds on positive relationships. and the criticism, that should be restricted to just that environment between you, where you can do the coaching and you can sort of build them up and have them change what it was that was maybe less than favorable into something or some attribute which is way more favorable. And then the team reward concept is a really good one. I think that we've all had our congratulations, everybody. Here's a pizza party moment. Those things are great, but when you go to do that, take a little bit of time and energy to consider what sort of incentive or reward you bring that people would truly find of value. I love pizza, so for me that's kind of valuable, But you do that over and over and over again, and kind of sort of loses its appeal over time.
Well, it does, and sometimes doing something offsite, if you can get away with it, okay.
Oh yeah.
You're going to go to a Mexican restaurant, as an example. Okay, go to a Mexican restaurant, do lunch. Okay, fine. Now, when you start doing 12 plus people, it's going to add up. So don't get me wrong. So some dollars will be there a little bit, but no alcohol. So we'll keep that in mind. No alcohol. But you have to keep it safe, especially at lunch in the work environment, especially in the U.S. Now, if you're Europe, whole different discussion. I'll be in Italy and do it. I'll put it that way. Table wine, no problem. I've done it too. But what happens is when you start looking at recognizing, and maybe it's just a little certificate of recognition. It's not even going to get something to eat, right? Certificate of appreciation for their efforts or going the extra mile, and you make things up. I know I've done that before. I've done that even scouting. And I did that a couple of years ago in scouts. I've been one scout leader, multiple different things, and all this happens for entire districts. So it means I help folks become Eagle Scouts, all this sort of stuff for advancement. And I came up with my own awards. Mm-hmm. And when they got it, it's like, get recognized. They loved it. Yeah. They totally loved it. They ate it up. It was to your point, it was a piece of paper that I bet they still have on their wall today because they were recognized for their efforts. Mm-hmm. That little bit of effort. But I've got, as Ed Miles says, I got goosies right now because I remember, right? Because that excites them, right? Absolutely. It's huge.
Yeah. It's also it's going to be, the reward is going to be suitable for what was done and suitable for the crew, suitable for the environment, etc. So coming from a military background and having that sort of degree of camaraderie and whatnot, one of the folks that I've worked with, a great leader, guy by the name of Tom Tamanini down in Hillsborough County, right? He was the head of their ambient monitoring program down there for the longest time. When you go around and you travel, you get to encounter a leader and the people that they lead. And I have found few other teams that match the admiration that they had and that very forthright and frankness they had with that environment. We've all had them at least a couple of times in our lives, but that's one to cite. And what he did for his crew was he went ahead and he stood up a beer night, right? And you didn't have to drink, of course not. But the whole idea, though, was to bring the team together and let loose, So you're not in a restrictive environment within the work environment. You're out, have fun, be safe, be responsible. But everybody, now you take that relationship amongst everybody and you move it a little closer to family-like, rather than just people that come in 9 to 5. And so, and when you do that and you open up that trust, and those relationships, you find that you can actually get a lot more done. And your team, they just come back for more. Absolutely.
Every time. And they're not looking for the tchotchkes on that side. No. They're there to support you because your point, I'll call it the bonding opportunity, right? They realize that they're amongst peers that support and respect them. And that's all we're looking for. It's not about the piece of paper. It's not about the little recognition is huge, right? It's not about the lunches that gets consumed and goes away. It's not about that, but it's the little bit of recognition and appreciation because everyone likes to be recognized and appreciated.
Yeah.
And in this case, well, we're only part of the project. You're right. And if you feel like you're the low man on the totem pole, because we have, these are 2 Freshworks projects, right? You feel like you're the little man on the totem pole. And he said, and you tell the sponsor, it's like, can I have a few minutes? I want to recognize some people.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. You know what that did to your role?
Yeah,
You might have been down here. You just went like right here.
absolutely. I mean, there are other things too. You know, that's a food example, for instance, is a really good one. One holiday, for instance, I wanted to really reward the section that I work for. So I actually went out to my Publix and I had the butcher select a lip on bone in full standing rib, right?
Oh, wow.
And now my grandpa taught me to cook from a very young age, so I absolutely had this. And so I planned it just right, and I brought in this absolutely magnificent piece of meat, and I brought the carving tools with me. And so we started portioning this stuff up. That meal is still being talked about 22 years later,
Yep.
just because of it. It wasn't just like the food was eaten right away. Everybody was full, and we got the itis immediately afterward, and go take naps or whatever. But it was the experience at the time, right? And the expression of care and the expression of
Exactly.
gratitude. That's the thing that gets carried away, and it can last for a very long time.
Exactly. And that impact is there. So
Yeah.
everyone's probably saying, well, you're talking about appreciation of the projects. We usually don't talk about that.
Right.
And you're right. We don't, right?
Yeah.
What's the data? How are we moving forward? It's like data is part of the whole conversation, but we're trying to go above that, right? Everyone
Mhm.
expects the data. Everyone expects the results. Say, okay, here's the new dashboard. Here's the new graphical representation. Here's the new outcome. Here's how we're progressing. They expect that, but we're talking about going above that. And,
Yeah.
and when you talk about going above for that reveal or for that update, people, back to your point, I love that. People are going to remember that moment,
Yeah.
really remember it, right? And then they're going to say, you know what, it's been tough, but it was worth it.
Mhm.
Because now I learned what real appreciation is. I just gained another brethren, right, in
Yeah.
arms. And being able to say, doesn't matter what happens, I've got your back.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
more powerful than anything you're ever going to talk about.
It sure is. But that and there's a tremendous amount of value that comes on the back of that. It really is. There was a point that I wanted to that I thought about a little earlier. It's like when you're doing the debrief and now you see this is what we've got. This is now you have all this available to you. You never had this before. The other thing that does is it starts lighting the light bulbs up in the room. People now can see this stuff and they understand the connectiveness of it and just what sort of information is present at their fingertips. Let's say in an ideal circumstance, you did it and you did it between 3 and 6 months, and immediately you had reporting and dashboarding to come out from all of this. Another thing that you can get from this, not only from the executives, but from the rest of the silos represented in the room, is to say, now that you have this, right, and we're going to move towards greater confidence and more completeness to fill the gaps, right? What can you do with it now that you
Mm-hmm.
have it? So what are the extended returns on the investment of time and effort and money that went into this right now?
Yeah.
And listen, brainstorm, and just let the ideas flow freely. There is no such thing as a ridiculous or a stupid idea.
No.
And in that
No.
particular case, some of those actually become very practical ideas going forward with a little bit of more thought and a little investment.
Well, it's doing that. So let me build upon that because I think that's a
Yeah.
great point for us to wrap up our session, right?
Yeah.
Now is the opportunity to show the progression,
Yes.
showing the brainstorming. How can we solve some of the problems we have outstanding, including executive support? So you have the ear and visibility, both, right? It's also the ability to say the executive. I'll just go back to the executive. The executive is also paying attention. It's like this team is working really well,
Yeah.
extremely well together. It's like, I've got this new project coming up. I think I just found my team members for it.
Yeah.
You never know where it's going to take you.
True.
And even if it's something really crazy, I mean, sometimes what you believe you're down in the dumps and you're the crabs are pulling your back. You're trying to get out of the box, right? It's just the old crab in the box routine, right? And you're trying to get yourself out. You're just dragging. So I'm like, gosh, this is driving me crazy, etc. And all of a sudden, the executives or peers see this, and it's like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
the little olive branch happens, right?
Yeah, with a
And
rope
that's huge.
to pull you
Go
out.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Those kinds of things can come along. I mean, especially if you own the work, right? If you own the work, right, and you have this proneness towards being sort of obsessive around the quality of it, we were talking a little bit about that before around analysis paralysis. If they see that you're doing really well, but they have a concern and they think it's time to, like, let's just pull you back, give you a little bit of a respite, let's hand off to somebody temporarily, right? That could be one of the best things they could do for you. That's also an indication, for instance, that they want to invest in you and they see where you're going, but they don't want you to burn out. So we're going to pull back a little bit and say, no, let's give you some buffer, maybe even some additional support. Like, what you're doing is great, but maybe you yourself shouldn't be doing it. So I'm going to give you a resource that's going to report to you, right? And now you have an additional capability and can do even more. And like utilize those kinds of, like, how would you say, just additions, let's say, to your capabilities.
Well, it may not be the executive or the sponsor who does that either. It might be a
Sure.
peer that steps in. It's like, I know you're struggling, Bill. I see it.
Mhm.
Let's see what we can do. I have somebody I can help dedicate, can take some of
Yeah.
those tasks off you because you just don't have
Yeah.
the bandwidth and you're very clear about it. Let's step up because that also goes a long ways too.
Yeah.
Right?
I would love to do a separate session just on team integration, management, and support because I'm really passionate about that. If I get a crew, I want to absolutely positively make sure that they're completely capable, right, and functional and healthy, and that they know that they're well taken care of, right, to the very best of my ability and the constraints of the organization.
No, I think that's a great topic. Let's see what we can do to fire that up next month.
Yeah,
We'll fire that up. I think we've had several activities we want to talk about next month, which is great.
we sure do. Yeah.
And this is going to fit great with everything we're going to be doing next month too. That will
Mhm.
be revealed next Friday. I'm just going to continue that. Put that little plug out there. Yeah. So from that, being able, as we come to the top of the hour, there's one thing to say. Here's the executive reveal. Here's the update. Here's the insight. Here's our baseline, right? But we're saying think outside the box on this. That's going to help you. One, help energize you. Because
Yep.
remember, we are the power plant. We have to exert energy to others. Like, Bill, where'd that come from? That's how I
Yes.
present. And that's how I'm presenting right now. Now, could I be down and out because some things on my plate? Absolutely. Am I going to be? I'm not, because I want to exude information out to you so you actually receive it. And how do you
Yeah.
receive it? Are you going to dull, boring, me, monotone, etc.? You're going to listen to that all day long? No.
Mm.
Boring. Okay, I'm depressed. I don't want to talk about anything. I lost something last night. It's driving me crazy. It's going to drive anybody crazy, right? No. But if you have information you exude and you're that power plant, you show energy. That's where everyone needs to receive from you.
Yeah.
They're going to receive the message better, right? We're talking about communication in this case, right? Bill, you just want the communication. Well, it's extremely important when you do these updates, right? And keep in mind, I'm a techie guy just like everyone else. I had to learn how to do it. It was not easy. There's lots of trial and errors. I'll put it that way. Lots, right?
Sure.
But there was also lots of feedback because sometimes when I present, I don't know how it's seen on the other side.
Sure.
I just don't. And having that experience, you're doing the reps. Get out there. How you move forward and doing that next step. This is huge, right?
Mhm.
And this is a pretty big project. I don't care whether you're talking about the bank or you're talking about the insurance company. You have a lot of visibility. I'm saying exploit it, but don't exploit it. That means anything. Do the right thing. Leverage the opportunity you have in front of you. This is a growth. This whole project's a growth opportunity for you. Don't look as negative. Okay, got more add to my plate. Okay, you may have added more add to the plate. What do you have to take off your plate if that's the case? The last 3 minutes, Rob. We're actually doing pretty good today. Is there something we want to think about from the executive as we finish up from an executive perspective on the reveal? That maybe we should set expectations on for the executive when they work with their team, because maybe you have an executive who's never been through a project like this and just has demands everything should be working properly.
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, right, the executives typically, like you said in sessions in the past, they don't have a whole lot of time. So they need to get that information that's of value up front, and delivered, so that this way they can continue on with the other concerns that they're going to have throughout their day. But that check-in point, though, is critical when you're in a place like this. So what you're doing is you're going to inform them of that progress and inform them of the completeness of it, right? So they can carry this, for instance, to their superiors, and you can have a quick interchange with them to say, all right, is it good, boss? Do we keep going as planned? Do we need to refactor? And then get your direction and your approval to continue to move the project forward, regardless, right? But that check-in is crucial, and it's a great place to take advantage of, and a great moment to take advantage of when you're working in something like this, or anything really, but in particular these scenarios.
Well, I will also say from an executive perspective, it's okay to say nothing. And what I mean by that is it's good to be an observer, but make sure you reinforce that, because most of the folks that are in the lower echelon, they don't realize the ranks you've gone up to where you are.
Right.
And remember how much support you had to have to get where you are today.
Absolutely.
Right? The little nuggets say good job, something like that will go a long ways, right?
Yeah.
The appreciation say it's taken longer than expected. Well, they say it takes longer to do things within 1 year, but in 10 years, your compounds or something like that. I've totally messed it up. They can't get my point, right? As far as what you can accomplish 1 year, it takes is significantly longer than what you can accomplish in what you believe you can do in 10. And the same is true here. As you bring this on, the team's going to struggle initially because they're working with team dynamics. You've got technologies, you've got maybe some changing of lots of things within the business at the same time. And also be respectful of that. And remember that, yeah, you agreed to put the project online. Now, if there's a vendor issue, et cetera, that's a little different. But with your own team, realize that they're trying their best with what they have. They may not be the same level of individuals that you would think for your own self.
Yeah.
If there is, get clarity behind that. Don't be judgmental. Be understanding and empathetic and understanding to say, now, if you need to slap someone on the hand, that's one thing. But also being able to say, it's okay. Worth working through and we're growing.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're going to continue to work and have to rely on each other, then I think that, that trust and that relationship going forward is going to be critical, because you will meet again. Invariably, you will meet each other.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this week and this session on the Accidental CMDB, the executive review, stabilizing our baseline. Some great information. Sometimes you never know where Robert and I are going to go in this chat, and this was great. This is great stuff, and we'll continue on Monday. And we're getting close to wrapping this up for the month, which is great. Yeah. Hard to believe we've been going through this, but the time goes fly so fast. Rob and I have talked about that. So hopefully this has been very useful for everybody and insightful. Again, these are topics you're not going to see anywhere else because they're just not out there. And outside of that, look for some announcements forthcoming very soon. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see everyone on Monday.
Thanks, all. Bye for now.